Hey everybody, it's me, Stacey Park, a licensed designer for Sizzix and Jacquard. Yay! March 1st has come and gone, and that means my Sizzix collection is available now. It is out there now. Holy smokes, artichokes, that's so hard to believe. So today I have got a fun-filled class for you. If you are new to Take Two Tuesdays, hello, I am Stacey. I am a licensed designer for Sizzix, and these classes are meant to teach and inspire and encourage and hopefully allow you to find a retailer that is close to you so you can go visit them. I am working with one of my stamps today. I'm working with one of my dies today. We are doing embossing powders today. There is a whole lot of goodness all wrapped up into this easy peasy technique-based commercial-free class. So if you look at the description of this YouTube of this class there's a little description over there. I list a couple retailers who are carrying the Stacey Park brand of Sizzix. Yay! And if you recognize them, or you live in their state, or you want to click their link to their store, by all means, it's all about supporting independent retailers along with all of our online friends. And I have an online retailer over there for you as well. So today is just beautiful. I'm going a little dark today. I'm going to be using darker colors than I generally do to give you a different look and feel. And again, my collection has launched, so all of those retailers that are carrying this product, they are posting about it, they're talking about it, but for ease, I always try to pick 2 retailers every Take Two Tuesday, which is every week, and we highlight them along with an online retailer to really promote and show that we're still out here. There's still stores available to walk into and see and feel and touch. And if you have that, we encourage you to visit them. But if not, then visit your favorite online retailer or Sizzix.com. Now, again, today I'm doing heat embossing. So I'm playing with embossing powders. And if you've never seen embossing powders before, well, there's no better reason than to find an independent retailer to go walk into, because if you ask them to show you embossing powders, it is phenomenal. It's one of the first things I ever saw when I started crafting, and it was just like hocus pocus. It was amazing. So I'm gonna work with a little bit of that today, and I am going a little darker in color. I'm gonna warm things up a little bit with what I'm doing. So I'm gonna tilt down and I'm gonna get started for today. And it's awesome to be here with you for today's Take Two Tuesday. I do Take Two Tuesdays every week at 5 p.m. sunny California time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, and you can find them on my YouTube channel. Or go to the Sizzix website, and under Inspiration, there's a tab at the top, Inspiration, find the Stacey Park Hub, and you will find my Take Two Tuesdays there as well. Are you ready to get started? Me too. All right, I'm gonna tilt on down and we're gonna rock it for today. It's good to see everybody. And again, I'm Stacey, a licensed designer for Sizzix and Jacquard. So nice to meet all of you newbies out there. Hello. All right, I'm gonna tilt on down and let's get going. So I am my own camera person and I don't edit. And I don't script anything, so we just kind of go with the way it is. All right, so today I'm going to do a little bit of work with one of my Fanciful Framelits. This is a new die from Sizzix. It's a series of 4 with more coming, and the dies are really unique. They're different than anybody else's, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. Always remember that if you see this teal banner over here, this teal little bar over here, that represents my brand. This is my Stacey Park color, and if you see that hanging on a wall or on a website, you know that you are looking at my designs. I'm also going to be working with one of my large stamp sets. And here it is. Love this one. Everybody has been absolutely in love with this stamp set. Makes my heart happy. And the design is here, but what I want you to see is the actual size of the stamp set. Hello, let me put a white piece of paper right underneath that so you can see better. Hello, there we go. Wow, what a difference, right? This is a full A5 size stamp set. I mean, it's big. I love that it's big. And you're like, why is it so big? Well, because I wanted you to be able to do A2 cards, A6 cards, 5x7 cards, slimline, mini slimline. I wanted you to be able to do whatever size you wanted. So when you're looking at my products, always remember that my stamps are always going to be bigger than the image that you are shown. They pretty much are the entire size of the packaging. And again, there's my little teal line saying that it's a Stacey Park item. You don't even have to look for my logo, but it's there. Are you gonna zoom in? There we go, but it's there. All right, so let's get started. I am going to start with my stamp set today. And I'm gonna work in white. I'm gonna work in cream, I think. Maybe that color. And maybe a little darker. Let's see. I think maybe those are the colors I'm going to work in, because I'm going to kind of warm it up a little bit and maybe look more guy related, or show you that inks can go a little darker and be absolutely beautiful. I'm going to cut these on down. These are A4 paper. Did you all know that Sizzix makes neutrals in a cardstock pack? Who knew? Look at all the colors. There's 60 sheets, there's 10 colors, and I had no idea. Look at the neutrals you get. I love them. Okay, they make my heart very happy. So I'm gonna work, let's see, let's just cut these on down. So nothing is pre-done. We do it here together. I think that's good. I can put those off to the side. That gives me a little bit to work with. Now my stamp set, very big, very easy to use, but I'm going to be using it with, it's a clear stamp, photopolymer, thick and lovely. I'm going to be using it with the stencil and stamp tool today, just because I love the tool and it makes things easier for me. This is the stencil and stamp tool. It does have a stencil portion to it, a little green portion to it that works when you are doing any kind of stencils, layering stencils. Today I'm using it as a stamp positioner, so I'm going to keep my lid on. It does come with a sheet of sticky grid, which is what I've got down, and sticky grid is just a glorified jumbo Post-it note which holds your paper in place without harming your paper. And you can already see I've got ink all over mine. It works fine even if it has ink all over it. The thing that it doesn't like most is perhaps embossing powder, because that will take the tack away, or glitter. So eventually, or even just the oils from your hand, eventually you're going to have to replace the sticky grid, and that's okay. Sizzix sells a pack of 5, and they really do go a long way. I've been using this one for quite some time, and when it's time to take it off, there's a little divot right there. I can just put my finger in, pull it right on off, and then put a new one down. But this one's still good to go. Now again, if I was using this as a stencil tool, I would not need the lid. And here is the lid. Love the lid. Did you see how easy that came on and off? There's no clicking. It just pops right on and off. There's no having to pull. It's lovely. So for today, I'm going to be using it as that stamp positioner. And I'm going to go ahead and put down my first piece of paper. I might just take this one down just a little bit in size, just because. So put it right here, give a good press, and at that point, my paper's not going to move. It's being held down by that sticky grid, but when it's time to pull it up, it pops right on up, easy peasy. Next, I need to put my stamp down. So I'm going to grab that stamp and I'm going to layer it right just on top of my paper because now I'm going to position it. That looks good to me. Take my lid right back, put it right in. Like I said, you don't have to pop it in or click it in. It just goes right back in. Close it up, and I'm going to press to get my stamp to adhere. It's going to cling to my top plate. Now, there are two sides to the stencil and stamp tool on the lid. There's a side that has a grid, and there's a side that is completely smooth, totally smooth. You're always going to want to put your stamp on the smooth side. You want it to cling to that smooth side, and you'll know if you didn't do it because one, you wouldn't be able to hear that on top. The smooth side is obviously has nothing there for a grid for me to make the noise. And two, your stamp kind of goes, it doesn't hold as well as it could. Can you put a rubber stamp in here on the smooth side and not have to turn anything over? Absolutely. This tool plays with everybody's stamps. Rubber, clear, whether it be red rubber, gray rubber, white rubber, it doesn't make a difference. You are good to go. So now that I've got it all positioned up, I am going to take some Versamark. Versamark is an embossing medium, and we use it when we are using embossing powders. And it is clear, so you're not going to see it. And I'm going to ink my stamp up as if it were regular ink. Ink everything up. So Versamark allows, well, it's a medium that stays wet long enough so that you can put embossing powder down and then heat set. So now I'm just going to do my little pie crust, making my pizza dough. And you can see because my stamp is so large, you need a larger platform. And being that there's no edges on this platform, you can use a piece of paper as big or as small as you want. So I'm just going to give some all over pressure, and I can pull up and I can see, did I get a good impression? So I can see a watermark there, which is what I'm looking for. Not sure I got all over, so I'm going to ink it up one more time. And do it again. Now, because I didn't move my paper, all I have to do is put it right back down, and it's going to line up perfectly every single time. I just want to make sure I get all those little dots and all those little squiggly lines. And I've given myself plenty of room because I'm not going to use something this big. I'm actually going to cut it down. Pull this off. And now I can lift it up and I can kind of see if I've got an all over impression. And it looks like I do. So I'm going to pull this off. And I'm going to set this over here just for a moment. Next thing I'm going to do is play with embossing powder. And I'm going to use the Sizzix clear embossing powder. Just made myself a little funnel. I'm going to take that embossing powder, and everywhere that Versamark has hit my image, that embossing powder is going to cling to it. So you can see I'm not doing this over my stencil and stamp tool because I don't want my embossing powder to get onto my sticky grid. So the embossing powder is clinging right to it. And it's only clinging where that Versamark is. And I'm going to tap off, and I can take a look, and it looks like I've done a good job getting it everywhere. And then I'm going to take all this powder, and I'm just going to put it right on back. You use very little. Embossing powder goes a really, really long way. All right. So now I've got it and it's ready to be heat set. I'm going to bring over my Sizzix heat tool. And this is not a blow dryer and it's not a paint stripper, it's a heat tool. You're not going to be able to turn this powder into a solid, which is what's going to happen. I'm going to take powder, the powder that I was using, and I'm going to heat it long enough that it melts into a solid. So all embossing powder is a finely grinded plastic. Super fine, so fine that heat will allow it to melt. But if you're using a blow dryer, it's never going to get hot enough. And if you're using a paint stripper, well, you better be darn good, because chances are you might burn your paper. So I'm just gonna put it right over. And I'm going to let it sit there until I start to see my embossing powder change from a powder to a solid. And you will see it. It gets a high gloss to it. And as I see it change, I slowly move. So I need to let that heat stay there long enough to turn it into that solid, but not so long that I scorch it or burn it. And that's the beautiful thing about a Sizzix heat tool, is that you can get this close. And it does have 2 speeds. So if you're nervous, you can start with the lower speed, but you'll get up to that high speed soon enough, because you can physically see it turn from a powder into a solid. It goes glossy, and you can get that reflection. And I'm just going to move it all over. Now I'm going to do almost all of this. And then I'm going to come in and take a look. Now I'm hoping I can get some kind of a glare for you. Hard for me to see if I do. But you can see where that embossing is. And it's turned to a solid. It's now no longer a powder. But over here, I didn't. And it is still a powder. If you don't heat set enough, what will happen is it'll wipe right off. Wiped right off. So I no longer have anything here to emboss. You have to be willing to sit there and make sure you heat enough to melt it, but not so much that you scorch it. And that's where a good heat tool comes in. So I've got this one done, and I'm going to leave it so you can see where I didn't hit the embossing hard enough to turn it, with enough heat to turn it. And I'm going to come back and I'm just going to do my other 2 colors and get those ready to go. So I'm going to bring back my stencil and stamp tool. I'm gonna do my next color, and every time I go a little darker in color, it's going to be a little easier for me to see that Versamark. I'm gonna go ahead and let's put my paper down. Put my stamp on top. Wow, that was good fit. Look at that, holy smokes. Give a press. Now Versamark is water soluble, so it cleans up with a baby wipe. I'm gonna go ahead and again, I'm gonna give Versamark all over. And I'm doing a slightly bigger image than I need, so I can cut it down to the size that I want. All right, let's see what I got. Press, press, press all over. I can pull up. Ooh, got a little piece of something there. Hello, you. Out you go. And I'm not sure if it's easier for you to see this, whether you can see the lines, but it is easier for me to see where I have hit enough and where I need to come back and maybe press just a little bit more. I can add a little bit more Versamark if I want, just to make sure that I've got good coverage everywhere. And because it's a stamp positioner, that's what we're using the stencil and stamp tool today. Put my lid right back on in, send it right back on down, and come in and give another push. So it is a large format stamp for a reason. It's a background stamp and you want to have options. It's always easier to make something smaller. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks great. That looks amazing. Let me see if I can get that for you. That looks fabulous. Can you see? I can see all the detail of the imaging. So I know I've got a good stamped image right there. I'm happy. I'm going to take it off and I'm going to use my embossing powder. You know what? But while I do that, I'm going to let this one sit. And I'm going to come over and we're going to do the darkest one as well. And you're like, you're going to let it sit. It's going to dry. Nope, that's the beauty of Versamark. It's not going to dry. It's a medium that stays wet long enough for me to work with it. It stays open long enough for me to do a few of these and then come back and add that embossing powder and heat set. All right, so let's go in. Versamark. And again, the darker the paper that I'm using, the easier it's to see where the Versamark is, how it's transferred the stamp onto the paper. And you can use Versamark just as a watermark. I could do this background and not add embossing powder to it at all, and it would give me this beautiful tone-on-tone background without doing anything because it almost looks like it's been watermarked, the paper. So let's go in and give a nice little press, and I'm doing my pizza pie or my pie crust. Some people said it was like little kitty paws. But the beautiful thing is when I pull it up, oh my gosh, that looks good. Now you can really see the Versamark. I could leave it just like this and let it dry, and it would dry like this, giving you a tone-on-tone perfect background. Could just call it done. Or if I feel I missed a spot, I can pull it back down, give a little bit more of a press. Okay, I think that looks perfect. I'm gonna pull it up, and now we're gonna go back and heat emboss. So remember my first one, way back over here. Well, it's actually my second one. I'm going to go ahead and put my embossing powder down on it. And I kind of go from the middle and just kind of let it walk its way down. And let gravity do all the work. Then I can dump it back in. Flip it back around. And do the other side. Tap, tap, tap. And that looks like I have got great all over coverage. Now I'm not going to do the other one yet. Let's see if it stays open long enough. I'm not going to do the darkest one yet. I'm going to let it sit there, and I'm going to heat set this one, and let's see if it stays open. And what I mean by open is that the medium stays wet long enough for me to come back and do it after I've done this one. So now it's just a wash, rinse, and repeat. I hold it there long enough until I see it start to turn into a solid and it gets that little gloss on it. And because I'm using clear, I'm borrowing the color of the paper. I'm using a clear embossing powder. So I'm using the color of the paper as almost like my ink. Come in here and make sure we get it all done. And you only want to stay on the element long enough for it to turn. Once you see it go from a powder to a solid and it gets that gloss, and in fact it even changes colors. So you can see how this side has been embossed and it's been heated enough to change into a solid, but over here it hasn't. I need to continue. This is all still powder over here. Okay. And I'm able to take this pick it up and move it and see if there's any dull spots or if everything has that nice shine and gloss on it. And if it doesn't, then all I have to do is come back and add a little bit more heat until I see it turn. All right, I think that looks good. So now I've got two. Here's the last one. Remember, I let it sit there. Did the medium stay wet long enough for me to add my embossing powder? Let's find out. Now again, I could just let it dry that way because it looks pretty spectacular. I think it looks great. But that's not today's demo. Embossing powder all the way down. And now you can see the difference. Look at that. And yes, it has stayed wet long enough for me to add my embossing powder. All the way down. I can see I missed some right over here. All right. And then let's put this back. I missed it right there. All right. I think that looks okay. Right there. All right, let's heat set. Can you see that? This is very easy to see it turning. No question about it. Where it doesn't darken up, it hasn't turned yet. And I can just watch it turn as I'm walking it all the way down. So I can take a look. I can see I didn't get enough over there. I didn't get any over there. I can take a look and kind of get that glare off of it and make sure it's all turned. And it's cool to the touch. Once it's cool, it's done. So now I've got 3 different colors. I've got white, I've got kind of a stone, a hazy stone, and more of a darker taupe. And I'm gonna use these. I'm gonna cut them down a little bit, just so I can play with them just a little bit. And now we're gonna go into the inks. I've got these that I can save for another time. And I think I'm going to start with my white. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to keep my inks pretty consistent. I've got 5 colors out right now. These are my premium dye-based inks from Jacquard. They are a water-based ink. They are beautiful. The things that they do are amazing. They stamp well. They blend even better. And I'm going to take with my blending brush and I'm going to grab some color. I think I'm going to bring over my mat. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some color. And it's going right over all of that embossing, that clear embossing. And that clear embossing is acting as a resist. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to add some color. And where that embossing is, the ink is resisting. It's not going to sit on top because that embossing has now changed into a solid, so it's changed into a plastic. And then I think I'll grab a little bit of maybe some blue. I've got Blue Jay here. And the darker I make the color, the more that embossing is going to want to pop. So a little bit of Blue Jay in here. And then I might come in with maybe a little teal deal. Actually, 1, 2, 3. Let's just get my inks over here. And teal deal. And the darker I make the color, the more that embossing starts to stand out. Oh, did you see that? Wow. That embossing is acting as a resist. And maybe I come in with a little bit more Blue Jay and just kind of blend all those colors in together. So I started with yellow just to take my paper from a white to something else. But I can come back in with my yellow if I want to add a little bit more yellow. Ooh, did you see that? Oh, that looks good. Do not be afraid of the colors. Get in there. It's only paper. That's all we've used so far. Get in there and let them be happy and let them blend into that beautiful deep saturation that we all know and love so much. And then I can come back in with my teal deal and I can just keep layering this color until I am happy. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off the top I'm going to take a baby wipe. Okay, so let's remember, started here. That's the other half of this. And this is where we've gone to. I'm going to take a baby wipe and I'm just going to gently wipe off. I smeared, but okay. Gently wipe off my embossing. Now that's not white embossing powder. That's clear embossing powder on white paper. Yay, right? We started here, we ended there. Imagine what you can do with all the different colors you have. All of your inks. Make your own. Oh my gosh, make your own backgrounds. These are beautiful. And it was just on white paper with Sizzix clear embossing powder. But let's take it to the next step. Let's go a little bit darker. And this time I think I'm gonna start with my teal maybe. Oh, Stacey, that was your blue. Let's go in with your teal. And let's add some color. So it doesn't always have to be on white paper. You can use color paper to get this done. And can you see I'm doing the whole thing? The whole thing. Just to add some color. Now maybe I come in with my Blue Jay and I start to darken everything up. As I'm darkening, the embossing is popping. And remember, that's not a colored embossing powder. I'm using the color of my paper almost like an ink. With that clear embossing powder, it's encapsulating the color of that paper. so that my ink resists it. And the darker I go, the more it pops. Oh, yum. So these are dye-based inks, but so highly pigmented that this is what we get to do with them. Means they're still water soluble. But look at that color. I am not afraid to layer a ton of color on here. The darker I go, the better that embossing pops. And then the last thing I do, I didn't use any yellow there. The last thing I do is give just a quick wipe, just to take any of that color off. Oh, my heart is happy. So white paper, white embossing. Tan paper, kind of a stony color, stone looking embossing. But what if we did, and remember, this is what we started with. This is what we started with, but this is what we finished with. All right, let's do our last one. Super dark, dark brown. Let's go in and let's add a little bit of our teal, and I'm gonna get rid of the yellow, and I'm gonna bring over a brown. Or like a brown, I'm like, I think so. I think I'm gonna bring over a brown. All it is paper. The worst case scenario is we don't like it. Right? That's the worst thing that can happen, is that we don't like it. Little bit of color. And then let's come in with my blue, because I've been consistent with my color up to now. And then let's go into my brown. So because I've got a felt top on my ink pads as my delivery, I have a little bit more control over how much ink I'm using. Now I've added that brown in, but it hasn't made mud. Hasn't made mud with my blues yet. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add some more teal. And again, it's not going to make mud. Look at how dark this is. Look at how rich that color is. And my teal is layering over my brown. And I'm not making mud. It hasn't all just turned to an awful shade of ick. Is ick a color? I think ick is. I think ick is a color. I come in here with some of my blues. And I can really saturate this. And the more I saturate it, the more that embossing pops. And then maybe a little bit more brown. Just for the sake of it. And there's no mud here. I know that's crazy to believe, right? But there isn't. And I'm layering color on dark. I'm not doing this on white because I wanted that color to be my embossing. How do we feel, everybody? Are we holy smokes artichokes? Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is give it just a little wipe, take off some of that extra ink. I started here. Oh, took off maybe a little bit too much. Oh, wrong color, Stacey. A little bit of color back in there. I took off a little too much. Love, 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 love. So my ink was still wet when I wiped over the top, and I took off a little bit too much ink because my inks are water reactive, so you can do that. Okay. So, started here, ended there. And the colors really are just dreamy. Love the richness. Love the boldness of it. And I could just continue to add color upon color upon color to build that color. So I've got those done now. Yay! So we went from here to there, super rich, super stunning. We did here, from here, and here, from there. Now all I have to do is finish. Let's get my blue, my teal, and I think I'm going to use, what paper do I want? Let's grab here, decide which one I want to do. I think that one looks good there. Yep, nope, I'm going to be good with that. Man, that looks gorgeous. That is wow. Okay, so I'm going to bring over my dies, and I've got my Fanciful Framelits here, and I've got it on my gotcha tool. Gotcha tool, bam, just like that, easy peasy. Keeps everything handy for you. Sits right up. It's launched, it's released, so has the Revealz paper, so have these dies, and I think I'm gonna put an embossing element into one of these, into my paper. So I'm gonna take the largest one, the largest embossing element. And that's what makes my dies different than everybody else's, is that I kept the embossing elements separate from the main die, so that you can use the embossing elements by themselves, You can use the dies by themselves, or you can use them together. I'm going to add an embossing element into this one, and to do that, I'm going to need my Sizzix Big Shot machine. So I'm going to bring that on over, and I'm going to bring my squishy and my knock knock. So a squishy and a knock knock is an impression set. You've got a silicone pad. I call it a squishy. You've got a impression pad. I call it a knock knock. Sizzix might call it a transfer set, but I've named them a long time ago. Now I'm not die cutting, so I'm not going to need to use my solo shim right now. When I choose to die cut, I'll need that solo shim, but I do need the base platform, and that does come with your machine. I'm also going to need that squishy and that knock knock. So my sandwich is, and let me go back just a little bit. My sandwich is, and be just up. My sandwich is the base platform, the knock knock, the squishy, my paper, and then my die with the embossing element faced down. So this isn't going to die cut anything. This is just going to emboss this element right on in. And then one of my clear plates that does come with my machine. And then I'm going to send it on through. And that pressure is going to make the squishy get longer. It's going to start coming out the back end. Can you see it grow? And that's it. It's just that simple. And now I've embossed my die. But this paper's pretty magic. And now that I've done my embossing, I can put it right back on my gotcha tool so I don't lose my die. I can bring over one of the new Sizzix sanding blocks. And just like that, magic, that embossing has now revealed itself. Hence the reason for the paper being called Revealz. Comes in two sizes. It comes in A6 and A4, and it sands to a lighter color of the top. So it's not white core, it's not solid core, it's color core. And look at that. So now if I bring over, gosh, maybe I even do this dark one. Ooh, that dark one looks good on there. Maybe I do the dark one. Oh, I think I am. I changed my mind. I'm allowed. I think I might just trim this right on down. Down, down, down. Just trim, trim, trim. Joop. And so now I might find my next size die. Perfect. And I think I'm going to take that piece right there. And this time I am going to use this as a die. So let's bring my machine back on over. I need my base platform, always. If I'm using a wafer die, that's kind of mandatory. I do need now my solo shim that comes with your machine. I do need my cut plate, my die, my paper with the die edge down. And then I'm going to put over a do not cut plate, which just is a plate that I never try to cut into. It keeps everything nice and easy, and it sails through my machine super easy. And let's cut. So now I've used my Fanciful Framelit, my Renee's rectangles. form just fell in the trash. All right, so now I can go here. And I think I'm going to want to matte that just a little bit. Maybe I grab a lighter color. And I want that matte really tight. Is that the color I like? No, that's the color I like. Okay, I'm gonna want that matte really super tight. I don't want it to be too big. So I'm just gonna cut myself off a hunk of this. I'm gonna use some double-sided adhesive to put it down. You would do a better job of putting this down than I am. I'm just getting it down there so I can show you. This is double-sided tape. Line it up, make that mat super tight. And then I'm going to trim it out. Now you would probably use a trimmer. I'm going to go ahead and just fussy cut. And there I go, right inside. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Peel up my liner. I didn't cut it because all I have to do is take it, it's double-sided tape, and just push it back in onto itself and it's fine. Line it up. A little too high. And we're getting there. I think the last thing I'm going to do is one more mat. And then I could add it to my card base and maybe add a sentiment. But for today, I think we'll be done. But I've got stunning samples to show you. Love, love, love. I changed my mind. I was gonna do the other color. I think I was gonna do the other color, the lighter. But this just came out so beautiful. Okay, now all I have to do is trim it out. Add the sentiment of choice. Don't be afraid of the color. Look at how rich and beautiful that is. And remember, it started like this. And we took it and made it something more, way more. We did it with the white. These started the same. Anybody see what I did with my other piece of my other sample? Oh, here we go. So typically me. So these two started the same. And I think that color is just magnificent. And I used the color of the paper to act as my ink. These two started out the same. And these two started out the same. And like I said, then all I have to do is add my sentiment. So what do we think? I have used my Ecliptic, I have a hard time saying that, Ecliptic stamp, which is a full A5 in size. I have used my Renee's Rectangle Fanciful Framelits to make magic happen. I have used my Sizzix Revealz paper. I have used Sizzix embossing powder. I've used a Sizzix heat tool. I've used a Sizzix gotcha tool. And then I have used all of my, well, not all of them. I picked 5 colors to play with today. And I only played with 4 in my dyes from Jacquard. Beautiful premium dye-based inks. They are so rich and they are so pigmented, what you can do with them with just paper. Just paper is amazing. And that neutral cardstock from Sizzix, that's a wahoo ka-choo. All right, so let me show you some samples of what else can be done with this set. So here, this one, again, super dark into the purples. I used Plum Crazy and I used my Blue Jay and my Fanciful Framelit. Here we've done the stamp as a background. Here I cut into panels, again using that Fanciful Framelit. All this now needs is a sentiment, but I cut into panels. This is clear embossing powder on white paper. Here we fussy cut out some of the little circles and made them into rosettes. All from the stamp set. Again, cut out the circles to get our pattern. Embossed, colored, inked. Isn't that beautiful? So pretty. Just the stamp in a slim line. And then this one I did. But I just scuffed the edges of the paper. And look at how cute is this? And you're like, how did you do that? That is from the smallest little die in my Fanciful Framelits. I die cut it 3 times and then stamped on the top. And here I just scuffed the edges. And here I embossed the edges. All right, you guys, this is Take 2 Tuesday. Wahoo ka-choo! Featuring 2 of my Sizzix products and my wonderful, wonderful Jacquard inks. Available at your independent retailers, available online. The product has launched. I'm so excited. And I hope that I had the opportunity to show you something new today, maybe teach you something you hadn't seen before, or maybe reminded you of something that, oh yeah, I can do that and I should do that. Why haven't I done that lately? So you're gonna join me, you're gonna join me every Tuesday for our Take Two Tuesday events featuring Sizzix and Jacquard and me, Stacey, a licensed designer for both. Thank you for being here today. It has been a blast, and I will see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. sunny California time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to look at the retailers that we are featuring this week, as they have this product in stock now for you. Bye, everybody.